Hello and welcome to the library. This story is a continuation of the original live I did on Clinton Road Ghost Stories. If you want to see that, click on the link below. If not, just sit back and enjoy. This story takes place in the summer of 1975. Two local buddies returned from college and decided to spend some time hiking and camping in the woods adjacent to Clinton Road, West Milford, New Jersey. Bill was more familiar with the area from his old Boy Scout days and knew a perfect spot to set up camp right on Terrance Pond. The pond had notoriously clean and clear water and was perfect for swimming. The two high school buddies decided to pack up their cars and meet on site at the old access road, park their cars, and hit the trails. Bill was more familiar with the area from his old Boy Scout days and knew a perfect spot to set up camp right on Terrance Pond. The pond had notoriously clean and clear water and was perfect for swimming. The two high school buddies decided to pack up their cars and meet on site at the old access road, park their cars, and hit the trails. The access road was maintained by the Newark Watershed Authority and was in the perfect spot for entree into the trails that led up the mountain and to Terrance Pond. They followed the trails up the mountain until they found the crystal clear water of Terrance Pond. They set up camp and began a day of hiking, fishing, swimming, and just having a great time. When dusk arrived, the two broke out the beer and built a great big bonfire. The two old friends cooked a great meal, started laughing about old times, and even told a ghost story or two. Before they knew it, it was 1 a.m. in the morning. Both were pretty tired from all the day's activity, and they were ready to turn in. Bill was just about ready to fetch water from the pond and douse the fire when he noticed two lights slowly coming up the trail towards the camp. Both men watched and waited with anticipation as the two lights slowly approached the camp. After a while, the moonlight revealed that these lights were actually lanterns being carried by two men. As the two men approached the camp, the light of the fire revealed that these two men were actually park rangers, relatively young, but fully dressed in traditional park ranger uniforms, each carrying his own lamp. The rangers greeted the boys and were quite friendly. They asked how the boys were enjoying the woods and their camping, and just wanted to make sure that they were up to speed on all fire safety measures. Jimmy immediately welcomed the two, offered them a beer and a seat to sit and rest. They both refused the beer, citing that they were on duty, but decided to sit a while and chat with the boys. One ranger did most of the talking and told Jimmy and Bill that they were out looking for a lost boy of around 8 years old who had been separated from his parents and wanted to know if the two college buddies had seen anything. Both Bill and Jimmy assured the rangers that in fact they hadn't seen anyone their entire time in the woods. Jimmy went on to ask the rangers if their vehicles would be okay for the night. He realized that the access road was maintained by the Watershed Authority and was concerned that they might be summoned or ticketed. Jimmy's question was met with puzzled looks as the rangers turned to each other, then looked back and assured both Bill and Jimmy that they were not there to issue any summonses that evening. After a bit more small talk, the rangers excused themselves, reminded them again about fire safety, and decided to make their way back up the trail in search of the lost boy. Both Bill and Jimmy, not thinking much of the encounter, simply sat there, drank a beer, and watched the two lanterns as they slowly walked up the trail and disappeared around the mountain. Shortly thereafter, Jimmy and Bill doused the fire and turned in for the night. The next morning they woke to a bright, sunny, and cool day. As they prepared breakfast, they couldn't help but think about what became of the boy the Rangers were so intent on finding. The more they thought about it, the more concerned they were. First, was the boy still lost? And second, if he wasn't found, the woods would soon be filled with search parties, and would their vehicles be an obstacle to the process? To be on the safe side, they decided to pack up camp and head back to their vehicles. As they were doing so, Jimmy noticed that one of the Rangers left a pocket knife on the log at which he was sitting. Perhaps it fell out of his pocket. Jimmy didn't think much of it, but quickly picked it up and put it in his pocket as they gathered up their things and hurried down the trail. Before they knew it, they were back at the access road. And just in the nick of time, for before their eyes stood a man with a summons book, writing each one of them a parking ticket. Jimmy ran up immediately to the man and began to protest. "This could not be. How can you give me a ticket? The park rangers said this was fine to park here." The man, who had been working for the Newark Watershed Authority, looked up from his summons book with a puzzled look. "Park rangers?" he said. "What park rangers?" Bill immediately began to tell the story of how they encountered the two rangers at their campsite late last night. And almost simultaneously, Jimmy jumped in with a question. "And what happened to the boy? Did they find the lost boy?" Again, the man looked at them confused and said, "Are you pulling my leg? There haven't been park rangers in this area since 1939. The State Park Department turned over this property to the watershed shortly after those two newly appointed rangers suddenly died. Everybody around here knows the story. They were looking for a lost boy and fell off the cliff over Terrance Pond. One of them, in fact, was a local guy from West Milford. I think his name was Peterson." Well, Jimmy wasn't buying this, and he quickly protested again. "This can't be. We met and spoke with these guys. They told us it was okay to park here. You shouldn't be writing us tickets." The man just shook his head and continued to write his summons. Jimmy again protested. "Look, I can prove it. One of them left his pocket knife," as he pulled it out of his pocket and handed it to the man. The man put his summons book in his pocket, took the knife, and began to inspect it detailedly. As he did so, Bill noticed the expression on the man's face changed. Pretty quickly, all the color seemed to drain from the man's face. The man, without a further word, handed the knife back to Jimmy, turned around, went back to his vehicle, and drove off. Well, Bill and Jimmy stood there with their mouths open, looking at each other. What just happened? Bill said, "Jimmy, let me see that knife." Well, Jimmy handed him the knife, and Bill took a very good look at it. What Bill saw on that knife made him decide never to return to Clinton Road again. Engraved in the handle, clear as day, were the words, "Ranger John Peterson, issued 1939. Until next time, stay scared.